There's a lot of freedivers that live in one country, but spend most of the year, if not more, in other countries. And this video is for you. The short answer is yes. They did finally cover and reimburse me after much hassle and deliberation. My name's Tori George, and I'm a professional freediver that experienced a decompression sickness on June 29th, 2024. And I went through a lot physically, but I also went through a lot mentally, dealing with the headache that is DAN insurance. A lot of us have DAN insurance, and we hope to never have to use it. But when push comes to shove, what happens? But until then, please subscribe and hit the like button. Have a very small channel. Every little bit counts. Now let's get back to it. This is what you need to know to avoid some of the same frustrations and hassle. To start out, not every country has a handler for DAN insurance. What is a handler? A handler is a third-party insurance company that will cover you on behalf of DAN Insurance. What surprised me is that there is a DAN Philippines. So naturally, I thought DAN existed in the Philippines. And if not, there would at least be a handler here. But there isn't. A simple online Google search would have you believe that there is a third-party handler in the Philippines. But there isn't. Even if there was, not every hospital would accept that third-party handler. The more you know. Furthermore, DAN Insurance is basically a franchise. DAN USA, DAN Europe, DAN Philippines, they have nothing to do with one another and they will not collaborate on behalf of the customer. Specifically, I have DAN USA. I have the enhanced membership. It's one step up above the basic regular membership. To take it a step further, I was told that even if I had DAN Philippines, I would still have to pay up front and get reimbursed later. Contrary to all the Google searching you do, you won't figure this out. Key lessons for all freedivers to streamline the process. Never talk to the general helpline unless you simply want to talk to people that can't give you the answers you need. Only ever talk to the claims department. If you walk away knowing anything from this video, just know this. Talk to the claims department, not the general helpline. The general helpline is the equivalent of calling your mother just so that she can tell you everything's going to be okay. They are good for someone to talk to, but they can't make actionable decisions in a purposeful way. If you're going to be in a specific country for a specific period of time, locate the hospital nearest your training location, call the claims department at DAN specifically, and ask if there are third-party handlers to cover a stay there if necessary, and for that matter, any of the surrounding hospitals. If you're visiting 3 different countries over the next 3 months, do the same for each country or city you'll be in. If you're one of the rare individuals diving deep enough to be at risk for decompression sickness, identify the nearest hyperbaric chamber and the closest hospital to that chamber. Inquire about coverage and third-party handlers for both. The hyperbaric chamber is not always directly related to the hospital, and in the Philippines, that was exactly the case. There's a hospital that coordinates with a hyperbaric chamber center. 2 separate entities, 2 separate bills, and 2 separate groups of doctors. If you have the money to spare, then none of this really matters. You can fork over the bill and get reimbursed later, at your leisure. Not all of us have that, so that's the point of this video. The main point is this: be prepared to pay for everything up front and brace yourself for the complex process of getting reimbursed later. I know, that's not really reassuring. In my case, I'm partially lucky because while in the Philippines, this meant spending between $2,000 to $3,000 at just the hospital and upwards of $5,000 for the chamber sessions itself. Healthcare in the Philippines is relatively affordable compared to other countries. My hospitalization lasted over 2 weeks, and a similar stay in the US could easily exceed over $100,000. Luckily, the people at the Hyperbaric Chamber Center in Cebu never charged me up front and waited for the reimbursement directly from DAN Insurance. That had absolutely nothing to do with DAN Insurance and everything to do with the grace at which they run that center in Cebu. You may not get that lucky. Over 60 exchanged emails and numerous phone calls later, I finally did get reimbursed. But let's address the challenges involved in navigating the reimbursement process. Luckily for me, the Hyperbaric Center in Cebu is well aware of the headache that is DAN Insurance compensating their customers. Imagine being in a state where you can barely move, struggle to speak, and require assistance with basic tasks. For instance, peeing into a bottle at your bedside because getting to the bathroom is just too cumbersome for everybody involved. All this while DAN demands extensive medical reports and paperwork from 5 to 10 doctors across multiple hospitals, all this before even considering your claim. Let's talk about Kevin. This is Kevin. He's awesome. Absolute angel. He works at the Hyperbaric Center in Cebu, and he understood the headache that is Dan Insurance compensating their customers very well. Kevin himself had been doing this for over 20 years, and he said it wasn't always like this with Dan Insurance. But unfortunately, he said this has become the norm. Despite the grim outlook that he and the center may not get paid by Dan Insurance, he regularly chose to treat patients first and ask questions later. Oftentimes, the center in Cebu would get the short end of the stick. Kevin's commitment to treating me first and dealing with the red tape later was a lifesaver in my critical situation. But all this is to say, you may not have a Kevin in your situation. So the short story is you need to be prepared to pay and get reimbursed. Dan Insurance will not baby you. They will not hold your hand. They're essentially a reimbursement service at the cost of a headache, and beyond that, their assistance is limited. They might help to an extent, but they are far from comprehensive in their support. Always contact the claims department, not the general helpline. Verify if a third-party handler exists in your country and whether it's accepted by the local hospital and hyperbaric chamber, because they may operate independently, and in the Philippines, they did. There's a lot of give and take in having a DAM membership, but ultimately, you're better off for having it. It's a valuable resource that can make a significant impact in a critical situation. The purpose of this video is to help you navigate and utilize your membership more effectively, making the process less frustrating and more streamlined. There were many moments when I almost gave up, and at times, it felt like the system was designed to push me to that point. However, understanding how to work through these challenges can help you to make the most out of your membership when you need it the most. Wow, okay, so you stuck around all the way to the end of the video. Do you have any idea how hard it is to talk about insurance and try to make it entertaining at the same time? It's next to impossible. So please like and subscribe the video, and more importantly, share this video with other people, because this is informative and it can really make a difference in people's life if they get injured out in the water. I hope this video sheds some light on what is a very complex, boring, but important topic. At the end of the day, they did pay me. It just cost me a lot of headache and a lot of work. So hopefully this video can help you streamline your process, and stay tuned. I'm going to start posting more videos about my rehab process after getting decompression sickness and a stroke. There's genuinely so much I want to talk about. The rehab process is pretty grueling, so I have a lot to share. I hope you learned something, and I'll catch you next time. Have a wonderful day.